Hello, and welcome to this talk on how to explain through humor, not with humor. I'm David Stolin from the Department of Economics and Finance at Toulouse Business School, France. What am I doing here? Economics doesn't have a great reputation in teaching, right? You recognize this from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Many of you have seen it. Many of you might roll your eyes when you see this in the presentation about student engagement. One thing that you might not know about this is that the person playing the economics teacher here was an economics professor. He wasn't an actor. He became an actor later. And so the student reactions that he's getting from the actors are like this, this, this. I've seen these kinds of reactions when I teach the slides like this. I still use the slide, but I also produce content like this. And this is not a slide, this is actually a screen capture from a video that I wrote and produced that explains, in this case, Bayes' theorem from statistics. And we started making these videos, and they received positive student feedback. Higher test scores were also in evidence, and we got a bunch of awards. So when I shared the experience in various online articles, there was a very positive reception from educators, so that's why I'm here. What am I going to talk about? By the way, the slides and related resources, there are a lot of them. There is a link at the bottom of the screen. If someone is listening to this on the podcast version, you go on tinyurl.com/SXSW-humor, and there's going to be these slides and a bunch of related resources. There's a lot of material that I want to cover, so if I go fast, you can catch up later at leisure. So I'm going to tell you how it started, the path that led me here. What I mean by explanatory humor. I'll give you an explanatory humor toolkit that I believe you can start applying immediately. I'll talk about short-form explanatory humor, which is just individual jokes, about long-form explanatory humor, which is what I call edcoms, or educational comedies, just like sitcoms are situational comedies. We'll make an edcom. I'll ask you for your suggestions for an edcom that I am going to produce, and Q&A. So one day, almost exactly 5 years ago, I was on holiday in Silicon Valley, in San Jose, and I just happened to walk into a comedy club, small comedy club. It's now closed. I don't even go to comedy clubs. I was just jet-lagged and was looking for something to do. And there, I see this comedian. Recognition? Someone? I see this comedian who's not only killing it from the stage, but he's doing it with smart math statistics jokes. And it's at the end of the day, Bay Area, everyone is tired. After the working day, they're not falling asleep. They don't have those facial expressions I showed you on the first slide. So I thought, who is this guy? So actually, his name is Sammy Obeid, and later on, he became widely known from the Netflix series 100 Humans. How many of you have seen it? Anyone? A few? Very interesting cross between social science and comedy. But that was later. That was several years later. But at the time, I said, let's do something. And one thing led to another, and we brought Sammy to my business school in France, and we made a bunch of humorous educational videos, what I call educational comedies, or edcoms. And we put them on our website, so various topics: entrepreneurship, finance, international business, marketing. This is a video on marketing with one of our professors. All of it is available for free, together with the teaching notes. And we became so confident, if not to say arrogant, that we started setting up challenges for ourselves, where we'd say, OK, there is no topic we cannot handle, even if we are clueless about it. We'll still take it on. So a couple years ago, we went to the Academy of Management annual meeting. This was a virtual meeting during COVID, and we basically said, okay, give us a topic that students struggle with. Don't give us a topic because you think it's funny. Give us something that's really difficult to explain to students. And 3 days later, because that's what the logistical window was, 3 days later, we make a irresistible, humorous, educational video on it that's going to explain it to students and make them want to learn more. So we really, opened our big mouths and we put our reputation on the line. Academy of Management meeting, for those who know, that's the meeting for management educators. And the topic that was picked, so there were suggestions, and then there was a vote, just like we are going to do in a few minutes today. The topic that was picked was something called, it's from organizational behavior, something called expectancy theory of motivation. As you can tell from my and Sammy's facial expressions, we have no idea what this is. Now, the reason it was proposed is that actually the professor who proposed it teaches at a regional campus of Rutgers University in New Jersey. And she said the following, that expectancy theory of motivation is about how you motivate someone in a non-financial manner. But a lot of her students are actually poor, destitute, some are homeless, and they just can't relate to this theory. They got confused. We recorded the video 3 days later. This is a still from the video. It's now used at over 100 business schools around the world and more than some high schools as well in more than 24 countries. And for us, this was just another test case. So we think of ourselves as kind of a laboratory of educational humor, and it's another test case that kind of shows that you can take any topic, and the video, by the way, is only 3 minutes long. Right, and you can take any topic and make it irresistible, funny, engaging, and kind of give insight into the topic. Not explain all of it, but give insight into the topic and make it stick and make students want to learn more. And we got feedback. The feedback that we were getting from educators and students is that students saying, "Now I get it." So why explanatory humor? Well, I could actually talk for 3 hours just about that, about the reasons why. But essentially, it makes learning more accessible, enjoyable, and inclusive. And now let's go to work. We need a working definition of humor, and there's a million of them. But I am interested not just in some theoretical perspective, but I'm interested in pragmatic stuff that actually helps you create educational humor, even if you have no comedy background at all. I don't. Okay, so humor is something that's initially perceived as incongruous, but in a moment's reflection makes sense, and it's not upsetting. Essentially, for me, that covers what we're interested in. What's fascinating is that there is a well-received evolutionary theory of humor. You can find it in this very interesting book that says that basically the reason mirth, humor exists is that it helps us learn. So if I'm a caveman and there is a rustling sound in the bush and they think it's a tiger, no, it's my stupid cousin snoring, right? Huh, that's funny, right? And so all these feel-good neurotransmitters, serotonin, dopamine, so that's my incentive to learn and distinguish between those different rustling sounds. So we come full circle if we now say, okay, let's harness that humor mechanism for formal explaining, because it's kind of there. That's what it's there for anyway. And so for me, explanatory humor is humor that's inextricably linked to the subject you're explaining, not just something that you sprinkle on top, not just random jokes used to liven things up. Humor that's linked to the subject matter. A bit more effort before it starts paying off. A joke model. Now, I've seen many models of humor. There are tons of them. But if I sort of try to synthesize them into something that's actually practically useful, it would go something like this. And this is the first time I'm presenting this, and I'm not a humor researcher, I'm a finance researcher. So I'm just, my interest is not in publishing, my interest is, does it work? Does it help me? And so I put it together because this is something that helps me understand how humor works, design humor, debug it, right, and fine-tune it. So we start at the origin. We start with nothing. Nothing has been said. Silence. Maybe there is some kind of, sort of a, what audience you're talking to, but essentially nothing has been said. And that's our origin. And then there's our setup, the setup of the joke, the first part. And let's say the setup is, if at first you don't succeed, okay? And then we're going to see how it can be turned into a joke. Now, what's the expectation? The expectation is, if at first you don't succeed, try again, right? That's our expectation, and that sets a direction. So, the setup sets a direction in which your mind is going. And if you hit the expectation, there is no joke. You just said something that everyone knows. Now, to have a punchline that works, obviously it has to be unexpected. It has to be different from this point E, the expectation. It also has to make some kind of sense. It can be logical sense. It could make sense by association. It could make sense through wordplay. But somehow the punchline has to be connected to the setup. It has to be benign. It shouldn't upset people, at least not too much, because otherwise it's just not funny. And the realization of all of this, oh, yes, it's unexpected, but it makes sense and it's benign, it has to be sudden. And then laughter happens. So let's try joke number one. If at first you don't succeed, try again. Not funny at all. Why not funny? Because it's right near the expectation. Try a little bit. So let's do something a little bit more. If at first you don't succeed, try a bunch more times. Still not funny, too close to the expectation. To make it funny, you want to really exaggerate. So if at first you don't succeed, keep trying until the result is statistically significant. Some chuckles. OK, so that's, we're getting to a joke, right? So we go in this direction. We can also go in the other direction. Going in the other direction would be, if at first you don't succeed, try reading the instruction manual, right? We're moving away from the expectation. But what's interesting is that here we're kind of dealing with the same context, whatever, either context-free, or maybe we're talking to a room full of educators who are starting their first year at high school teaching, and they're thinking, am I going to succeed in high school teaching? But to make it funny, we can then add another dimension, which is contextual distance. So how far you are, in a different context. And then even without, altering the sort of the intensity, try much harder or stop trying, you can just by increasing the contextual distance, you can make a joke. So if at first you don't succeed, do it the way your wife told you to. We weren't thinking about marital stuff, but there it is. You can at the same time increase contextual distance and go and exaggerate. So if at first you don't succeed, keep buying those Powerball tickets. Okay, and you can reverse the direction while keeping the increasing the contextual distance. And then if at first you don't succeed, then maybe skydiving is not for you. Okay, so this works, right? And the thing is, what you learn from the reason this model is useful is that if you look at it, you can say, okay, so what do we have here? We have this direction that we can play with, contextual distance we can play with. Things have to make sense. So what are the humor tools that we can use in order to produce jokes? So here I'm going to borrow the taxonomy of Scott Dickers, founding editor of The Onion, who wrote a very useful book. And he has 11 humor tools. We don't need all 11. We need just a couple, plus another one that he doesn't have. So for the direction, obviously, we talked about this, you want to increase the intensity, hyperbole. It really just to the point of absurdity. You want to go in the other direction, irony. You want to increase the contextual distance, analogy from a different domain, from a different context. Or that's not one of Scott Dickers's humor tools, but it's something we use a lot. Illustration, exotic, absurd, almost illustration. And then for the joke to work, there has to be a tight connection between the punchline and the setup. And for that, reference. So reference here means we're referring to a common experience that all of us are aware of, or something that just happened recently, that kind of stuff. Callbacks. Wordplay is also great for that. So these are all the humor tools you can play around with. And again, the resources, the various articles I've written, and the videos that we've made, and the books that you can look at. Again, tinyurl.com/SXSW-humor. So you can find kind of stuff that will give you ideas how you can start applying these insights right now. But really, the number one humor tool is analogy. And the reason for that is that humor feeds on analogies. And certainly, if you look at Seinfeld's book of stand-up and you just literally do a count of how many times he says, it's as if, or it's like, on every page, basically. Analogies, right? But learning also feeds on analogies. And in fact, another book very big book, but just priceless for any educator, I think, any parent probably as well. Humor as, Analogy as the Fuel and Fire of Thinking by Douglas Hofstadter and Emmanuel Sander. And basically, it very convincingly makes the point that we think through analogies, and up to what seems like the most abstract level. They have a whole chapter on Albert Einstein's discoveries and how they were fed by analogical thinking in his case. And so in the remaining very little time that we have left, I'm going to take you through 3 Nobel Prize winning ideas from finance. How about that? I'll give you some insight into them. So market efficiency, Nobel Prize won by Gene Fama of the University of Chicago a few years back. The idea is that it's difficult to make money in financial markets. It's not supposed to be easy. So we made a video where at some point Sammy Obeid says the following. He says, there are a lot of professional investors who are competing with you for the same profit opportunities. They probably have better training, better resources, and more money at stake than you. Going against them is like going against a professional MMA fighter when you just shadow box at the gym on Saturdays. It's a dumb idea. Okay? So analogy, exaggeration, and obviously delivery. And one thing in delivery is that stand-up comedians will travel for hours just to do open mic. And we educators, we have captive audiences. We can practice all we want and we get paid for it. How great is that? Now let's say we have so that's our number one Nobel idea, comedifying an analogy, an example. And so another Nobel Prize winning idea from economics. And again, the idea is not to explain everything to you through a joke, but to say, okay, I'm getting something there, and maybe I want to learn more because it kind of sounds interesting. So Nobel Prize idea number 2. Nobel laureate Merton Miller once summarized the capital structure irrelevance theorem. Sounds very fancy, right? That he co-developed in this way. And he was talking to a newspaper reporter when he did this. And he said, think of the firm as a gigantic pizza divided into quarters. If now you cut each quarter in half into 8s, our proposition says that you will have more pieces but not more pizza. So that's pretty good. That's pretty lighthearted. That's nice. In fact, the newspaper reporter said they gave you the Nobel Prize for that. But if you want to turn this into, and this is how it's taught in every MBA classroom, people give this. But if you want to turn it into a joke, I'm not saying you should, but if you want to, how might you do it? I mean, so turning a witticism, sharpening it into a joke. So Firstly, you identify the core truth, right? That's the point of educational humor. We're not just interested in some kind of, random funny stuff that pops into our head. We're saying, what's the learning point? What's the learning objective here? And how do we illuminate it through humor? So what's the core truth here? Someone takes active action but achieves nothing. So, these financial managers, they're trying to say, oh, let's change from 50% stocks to 50% bonds into 70-30. But according to this theory, under certain assumptions, this will achieve nothing. So that's the core truth. Then we want to make it as relatable as possible. And we want to bring in hyperbole to the point of absurdity. And so the result may go something like this. And this is like very embarrassing for me because, I'm not a stand-up comedian, but I'm just trying to show the process, right? So you might say something like this. So some finance managers argue that by swapping company stock for debt, they can increase company value. Merton Miller says this is like hoping to change a pizza's size by how you slice it. If a toddler tried this, it would be adorable. You'd want to hug him and play with him and buy him ice cream. But appoint him as your chief financial officer, right? That's the punchline. And then, comedians like to, after the punchline, add a topper. Appoint him as your chief financial officer. The kid shouldn't be allowed one step outside the accounts receivable department. There we go. You can do, you can do your own thing. But see, I mean, this is like, people say explaining humor is like dissecting a frog. The frog dies and no one enjoys it. The thing is, I think it's very useful for us educators. So, if you want to polish a joke, so this is Joe Toplyn, 3-time Emmy Award winning writer for Jay Leno and David Letterman, and his tips are just spot on. You want to polish your joke? Wildly exaggerate, use specific words, not general ones, make everything clear. Again, the slides are available for download. Make everything clear, shorten as much as possible, put least important information first, don't telegraph the punchline, and end in the laugh trigger. That's it. That's our short form humor. Okay, very, very quickly, because right. So, perfect, one-liner that follows all these rules. You can analyze it using the model I presented. What idiot called it a randomized controlled trial with placebo and not trick or treatment? So this is how short-form educational humor works. This is how you can create it. I encourage everyone to try it. It's a lot of fun, but you feel like it's making you a better educator. You really are looking at as a comedian, when you're looking at it through your audience's eyes, it's a fantastic thing to be doing. Now, long-form educational humor, very quickly, what I call educational comedies or edcoms. Our third Nobel Prize winning idea, capital asset pricing model, Nobel Prize in economics. It's an equation. Everyone suffers. So people who are not finance junkies, they just tear their hair out over this. But it's a model. It's not perfect. It thinks it is, just like my humor model, right? And so we made this we went to UCLA and we shot this video where the guy on the left, he is the model. He's a male model who is the capital asset pricing model, also represented by this equation, and he's very arrogant, and then he's going to be taken down a notch by a UCLA professor who says, well, this model doesn't really work as well as we think it does. If you want to create a humorous sketch, and this is something you can give to your students as an assignment. We learned a new topic. Make a funny video about it. Joe Toplyn's recipes. Think of a comic character with 2-3 exaggerated traits. Make your comic character want something. Have someone oppose your comic character. Have your comic character take increasingly radical steps to get what he wants, he or she. Have your comic character get or not get what he wants. Throw in a final twist. That's it. That's how it's done on Saturday Night Live. That's how it's done all over the place. And you can do it. Your students can do it. It's a lot of fun, and you learn a lot. So we did it just now with this paper forthcoming in the Journal of Finance, an elite finance journal. It's, I don't have time to go through it, but essentially we have a finance professor and we have our comedian, and they have a conversation. And through the conversation, they're essentially illustrating the key point of this paper. Let's make an edcom. I'm going to take 3 suggestions, and then we'll vote a topic, don't give me a topic, please, that you think is funny. Please give me a topic that, your students struggle with, that you think that there is no great video about, and that you'd like to see a great video.
Okay, so the myth that your left side of your brain is analytical and the right side of your brain is artistic, it's just not.
Okay, so the fallacy of the left and right side of the brain. Number one. Someone else, number two? Metacognition, okay? And number three? Ooh, differential equations. Okay, so I'm not going to vote not to bias the result. Okay, so left, right side of the brain, who thinks we should make a video about that? I have an associate. Can you help count them? Okay, my associate will sort of estimate. Okay, then metacognition. I think it's less. Differential equations. Oh, yes, differential equations. Fantastic. Right. I mean, we did 3 Nobel Prize winning theories, so, we can handle differential equations. Now, the only thing is that, sorry, so, so an important topic, blah, blah. So the video will be posted on this YouTube channel later this year. Why later this year? Because I'm a finance professor. In the summer, we're going to do it. So my parting words are just that, look, you have boring material, difficult material. Apply humor, explain it through humor, then you'll have your aha, and you'll have your ha-ha at the same time. And if you look at this chart very carefully, you're going to notice that actually in it, humor is the key node. So you could say this has been my keynote speech. Thank you.